There was a woman named Elena who had lived most of her life feeling like she was carrying invisible weight. Other people could not always see it because she had become skilled at looking fine. She smiled when needed. She worked when needed. She answered questions politely. She kept her house in order and did what was expected of her. But inside, she often felt trapped by things no one else could see. Fear had followed her for years. Shame had lived near her heart. Old memories had stayed in her mind longer than she wanted. Some of the things that hurt her had happened long ago, but their effects had stayed with her as if they were fresh. She had learned how to live around those feelings, but she had not really been free from them. Elena did not always understand what freedom meant. She thought freedom meant having no problems. She thought freedom meant money would never be tight, people would never disappoint her, and life would never feel heavy. She thought freedom meant being able to do whatever she wanted without worry or pressure. But her life showed her something different. She saw that even when some circumstances improved, the heart could still feel chained. She had times when things looked okay on the outside, but she still felt afraid inside. She had moments when people said she was doing well, yet she could not shake the weight she carried in private. The weight began in childhood. She grew up in a home where tension was common. There were arguments she did not understand, silences she did not know how to interpret, and burdens placed on children too early. She learned to be careful. She learned to stay small. She learned to avoid drawing too much attention to herself. It was easier that way. If she stayed quiet, maybe conflict would pass over her. If she stayed useful, maybe people would not criticize her. If she stayed agreeable, maybe she would be safe. Those habits helped her survive, but they also taught her to hide. Over time, hiding became normal. She did not realize that what helped her survive in one season had become a cage in another. As she grew older, that cage became harder to see but more powerful to feel. She feared rejection deeply, so she often said yes when she wanted to say no. She feared failure, so she delayed important decisions. She feared being judged, so she kept parts of herself closed even to the people who loved her. She feared disappointing others, so she carried responsibilities that were too heavy. She became very good at managing everyone else's comfort, but she rarely gave herself the same kindness. She called it being strong, but much of the time it was really fear wearing a mask. There were also times when shame told her lies. It told her that her past defined her. It told her that she should be further along by now. It told her that she had wasted too much time and made too many mistakes to truly start again. It told her that if people knew what she carried, they would not understand her. Those thoughts made her feel trapped inside her own mind. She could go to work, go to church, go to the store, and still feel chained in a hidden place inside her. She did not say this aloud very often. She was afraid that if she gave the pain words, it would become too big to bear. One evening, after a long day, she sat alone in a quiet room. The house had settled into silence. The light from a lamp made the walls feel soft and warm, but her heart still felt cold. She had spent the day trying to handle everything that needed her attention. She had answered messages, paid a bill, checked on a family member, and done her best to stay composed. But now, alone with herself, she felt the truth pressing in again. She was tired of being afraid, tired of feeling bound, tired of acting like she was fine when she was not, tired of carrying old chains no one else could see. In that stillness, she bowed her head and prayed in the simplest way she knew. She did not have polished words. She did not have a long speech. She only had honesty. She asked God to help her. She asked him to remove the fear that lived in her mind. She asked him to heal the shame she had carried for so long. She asked him to show her what freedom actually looked like. She asked him to help her stop living, as if she was still trapped in things he could already release her from. Her prayer was quiet, but it was real. As she sat there, a thought came to her heart with such peace that she almost cried. "You are free." The words felt both simple and impossible. Simple because they were clear. Impossible because she did not feel free yet. But the message stayed. She knew deep inside that this was not a fantasy or a passing emotion. It was a truth waiting to be accepted. She had been living as if the chains were still locked around her heart, while God was already speaking release over her life. The next morning, nothing had changed on the outside. The same home still needed cleaning. The same bills still waited. The same responsibilities remained. But something in her had shifted. She began the day more quietly than usual, as if she was trying to listen carefully to the new truth inside her. She still felt the old fears at the edges of her mind, but they were not as strong as before. She had spent so long believing the lies that freedom felt unfamiliar. Yet unfamiliar did not mean false. It only meant something new. She started noticing how often she had been living like a prisoner, even when no physical prison existed. She had limited her own choices out of fear. She had kept her dreams small because she was afraid of disappointment. She had avoided honest conversations because she feared conflict. She had delayed healing because she feared what she might find if she looked too closely at her pain. These were invisible chains, but they were real. Seeing them clearly did not make her ashamed. It made her ready. You cannot be free from what you refuse to name. Elena began to pay attention to her thoughts. That was not easy because her mind had become used to certain patterns. Whenever something went wrong, fear jumped in quickly. Whenever someone was distant, shame whispered that she had done something wrong. Whenever life felt uncertain, she imagined the worst. But now she started pausing before following those thoughts. She learned to ask whether what she was thinking was true or just a habit. That question changed a lot. It gave her room to breathe before fear could take over. She also began to realize that freedom is not only a feeling, it is a way of living. A person may still remember painful things and still be free. A person may still face challenges and still be free. Freedom does not mean never feeling pain again. It means pain no longer owns the heart. It means fear no longer leads to every decision. It means shame no longer gets the final word. Elena began to understand that she had been waiting for a feeling when God was calling her into a new way of being. One afternoon, she had to do something that used to terrify her. She needed to speak honestly about a problem that had been quietly hurting her for a long time. In the past, she would delay the conversation, worried about the outcome, and maybe even avoided it altogether. But this time she knew she could not keep living under the same old pressure. She took a deep breath and spoke with calm honesty. Her voice trembled at first, but she did not stop. She said what needed to be said. She chose truth over fear. When the conversation ended, she felt something release inside her, not because everything was fixed immediately, but because she had stepped out of the old prison of silence. That moment taught her that freedom often begins with one honest step, one truthful sentence, one decision not to hide anymore, one choice to stop agreeing with fear. One act of courage can begin a whole new way of life. The chains that had felt permanent started to lose their power because she had stopped feeding them with secrecy and agreement. As the days passed, she noticed more changes. She began sleeping a little better. She no longer replayed every mistake in her mind as often. She stopped apologizing for existing in spaces where she belonged. She allowed herself to rest without feeling guilty. She started saying no when something was too much. That was a big step because she had long believed that saying no made her selfish. Now she saw that healthy boundaries are part of freedom. A person who is free can serve with love, but not out of fear. They can give from peace, not from pressure. Elena also began to reconnect with things she had once loved but had buried under survival. She started writing again, just small reflections at first. She spent time outside in the early morning when the air felt calm. She listened to music that lifted her spirit. She made room for laughter. These things may sound simple, but they mattered deeply. Fear had made her life narrow. Freedom began widening it. She was learning to live again, not just get through the day. The more she moved in this direction, the more she realized how much her sense of freedom had been tied to what others thought. She had been living for approval more than she realized. She wanted people to see her as capable, peaceful, and strong. When they did not, she felt defeated. But now she was learning that freedom is not found in the approval of people. It is found in the truth God speaks over a life. People may misunderstand your journey. They may not know the weight you have carried. They may not see the quiet battles. But God sees all of it, and His word over you is stronger than their opinion. That understanding gave her courage to stop pretending. She no longer needed to appear perfect to be valuable. She no longer needed to look unshaken to be strong. She began to let others see a more honest version of her. Not a broken version in a hopeless way, but a real one. She understood that honesty is part of healing. Hidden pain grows stronger in darkness, but it weakens when brought into the light of truth, prayer, and safe support. She shared some of her journey with a trusted friend one afternoon. She had never spoken so openly about the fear and shame she had carried for years. Her friend listened without rushing to fix anything. That kindness helped Elena feel less alone. She realized that freedom grows when people can speak honestly and be received with grace. She had spent too long believing she had to keep everything hidden. Now she was learning that the right kind of openness can be healing. Her life did not suddenly become easy. There were still hard days. Some fears still tried to return. Old memories still surfaced from time to time. But now those things did not define her in the same way. When fear came, she recognized it faster. When shame whispered, she no longer listened as closely. She had begun to understand that freedom is sometimes not the absence of battle, but the ability to stand in the battle without losing yourself. That is deep freedom. That is the freedom God was giving her. She also began to notice how her home changed with her. The atmosphere became softer. She spoke with more calm. She reacted less sharply. She showed more patience. Those around her felt the difference, even if they did not know the reason right away. Freedom in one heart often changes the room around it. A person who is no longer ruled by fear brings a different energy into the spaces they enter. Elena's home began to feel safer because she herself was becoming safer inside. As time went on, she had moments of reflection where she thought about who she had been before and who she was becoming now. She realized that much of what she once called personality was actually pain. She thought she was just reserved, but sometimes she was afraid. She thought she was just careful, but sometimes she was bound by anxiety. She thought she was just private, but sometimes she was hiding shame. Naming these things did not make her feel bad. It made her feel free. Truth is often the doorway to freedom because it stops confusion from pretending to be identity. Elena began to see herself differently. She was not the frightened little girl she had once been. She was not the woman trapped by every old memory. She was becoming someone who could face what had once controlled her. She was becoming lighter, not because life had become perfect, but because she had stopped carrying what was never meant to define her forever. She had learned that freedom is not something she had to create alone. It was something she could receive and walk in with trust. One evening, as she looked back over the changes in her life, she thought about how long she had lived as if she were trapped. She realized that the prison had been made of fear, shame, silence, and agreement with lies. The door had been open more than she knew, but she had not walked through it because she did not believe she was allowed to. Now she understood. Freedom had already been offered. She only needed to believe it, receive it, and live like it was true. That truth gave her a new kind of strength. She became gentler with herself. She stopped speaking harshly to her own heart. She forgave herself for not knowing sooner. She allowed healing to take time without calling herself a failure for being in process. She saw that healing is not a race. Freedom does not always arrive in one dramatic instant. Sometimes it grows slowly, like light filling a room at sunrise. It begins quietly, but by the time it is full, the room looks completely different. She started helping others in similar places, not by preaching at them, but by being honest and steady. She encouraged those who lived under fear to ask whether they were truly trapped or only believing they were. She reminded them that freedom can begin in the mind before it is fully seen in circumstances. She told them that the heart can learn a new language. It can learn to trust, to rest, to breathe, and to move without panic. She had walked that road, so her words carried warmth. One of the most important lessons she learned was that freedom requires practice. It is not enough to hear the words once. A person must return to the truth again and again. They must choose it when fear returns. They must choose it when shame speaks. They must choose it when the past tries to pull them back. Every time she did that, the chains loosened more. Freedom became a habit. It became a way of thinking, speaking, and responding. She also discovered that freedom brings responsibility. Once a heart has been released from old bondage, it must not return willingly to the same prison. This meant she had to protect her peace. She had to choose what voices she listened to. She had to be careful with what thoughts she entertained. She had to refuse the old lies when they tried to come back in a new disguise. That did not mean she lived in fear of losing her freedom. It meant she valued it enough to guard it. Over time, Elena's story became one of quiet transformation. She was still the same person in some ways, but she had changed deeply. She had learned that freedom is not loud bragging. It is quiet confidence. It is no longer bowing to fear. It is no longer serving shame. It is no longer living as if the past is stronger than grace. She had been bound, but now she was walking differently. She stood taller. She breathed easier. She lived more honestly. She came to understand that the greatest chains are often unseen. Fear, shame, silence, self-doubt, people-pleasing, old pain. But she also came to understand that those chains do not have to stay. They can be broken by truth, by trust, by courage, and by the steady work of healing. That is what happened to her. The prison did not last because God's word over her was stronger than the things that held her down. She was free, even before she felt it. And when she finally believed it, she began to live like it. That is the guidance in her story. You may still remember the things that tried to hold you. You may still feel moments of fear or old pain, but those things do not have the right to rule your life forever. Freedom is not a fantasy. It is a truth you can walk into. It begins when you stop agreeing with the lie that you are trapped. It grows when you tell the truth, trust God, and take the next step. It deepens every time you choose peace over fear. Elena's life became a simple message to anyone who has felt bound by invisible chains. You are not what fear said you were. You are not what shame said you were. You are not your past. You are not your worst moment. You are not in prison. You are free. And once that truth settles in your heart, you can begin to walk like someone who has been released. So keep walking, keep healing, keep telling the truth, keep choosing peace, keep trusting the freedom that has already been spoken over your life. You may have lived bound for a while, but that is not your final identity. You are free.